to say that there will never be another animated series that will mark a generation as much as SpongeBob did. Even though episodes are still being produced today, they are not as memorable as the first seasons of the series. With more than 500 episodes, there are thousands of curiosities and details that you can't see at first glance. There are also episodes that were never produced, as well as many strange stories about SpongeBob. In this video you will know some of those things, starting with the most normal and common, until the end where you will find the most terrifying or interesting things about the series. Level 1. In the episode Rule of Dumb, Patrick is the official king of Bikini Bottom. This leads him to rule arbitrarily and uncontrollably. However, in this episode, we learn that Gary and Patrick have a family bond, so we could say that they are probably cousins. In the episode Chocolate with Nuts, we see how there is a fish addicted to chocolate, which would not be remembered if it were not for this episode. This fish has a destructive and uncontrolled attitude, chasing Patrick and SpongeBob until he catches up with them and buys their chocolate. The curious thing is that there is a theory, because the same fish appears in prison in another episode, it is believed that he did some kind of crime, caused by his addiction to chocolate. There are many scenes, which were intended for an older audience. This is quite common in animated series, and SpongeBob is no exception. Although it is also fair to say that not all of them are intentional and some may be accidental, as they can only be seen for one frame.
I was just looking for the sports channel, Gary.
SpongeBob is, naturally, a sea sponge. Patrick Star is a starfish. Mr. Krabs is a crab. But Squidward Tentacles surprisingly is not a squid. He's an octopus. According to creator Stephen Hillenburg, the team chose to make Squidward an octopus because he liked the look of the sea creature's head. In the first SpongeBob movie, SpongeBob claims to have 374 Employee of the Month awards. If we do a simple mathematical division, we will know that SpongeBob has been working for approximately 31 years and 2 months. It is believed that there is an uncensored version of the Sailor Mouth episode, this because the voice actors had to say the actual words, and then the sound would be added to censor it. It is not known 100% if there really was an uncensored version, even if there are those who claim to have seen it. The truth is that the only ones who know the truth are the producers of the series. SpongeBob is probably the most relevant series when it comes to creating memes. Hundreds of frames have been used, and every day they continue to find more. Something curious is that most of these are from the first 5 seasons, which coincidentally people consider to be the best of the series. A Day with SpongeBob SquarePants is a supposed documentary that was sold on Amazon, but within a few hours it appeared to be out of stock. This caused fans to want to know more about the film. This is a more independent production and is not official. The creator of the idea has the name of Mr. Orange, who was afraid to create the movie because of the legal problems he would have with Nickelodeon. However, he was given the green light and started production, and would even be given a bar code. The movie was uploaded to Amazon in order to know if there was interest being in pre-sale, but then it would be cancelled. In the end they would try to resort to a crowdfunding to finance the project, but nothing is confirmed. Level 2. The secret formula of the Krabby Patty has been one of the biggest mysteries that have existed in animated series. Many people theorized about what it could contain, some saying that it was crab meat, which would make Mr. Krabs was selling his species in exchange for money. Others claim that there is nothing special about it and that it is a simple hamburger, but the reality is that Stephen Hillenburg confirmed what they are made of. They are veggie burgers, with soy-based ingredients, and although for many it may not sound so delicious, we have to remember that they are made for the inhabitants of Bikini Bottom. The original intro that was planned for the series is not the one we know today. What was intended is that the intro would be different images of SpongeBob with a background music, clearly very different from the iconic song that has.
I'm ready!
SpongeBob SquarePants!
It is normal for scenes to be cut. Not everything will make it through all the filters. An example of this occurs in the episode Just One Bite, where Squidward discovers that he loves the Krabby Patty. Upon arriving at the Krusty Krab, we see how there is a trap. He would think it is water, but it is gasoline. This scene was cut because they thought it was too explicit for a children's show.
Hey, this isn't water. This is gas.
The intertidal zone was a comic created by Stephen Hillenburg. Here we can see what is possibly the first appearance of SpongeBob, which has a very different appearance to the one we know today, being more like a real sponge. This design would be improved. SpongeBoy would be the next name that the character would have, but he would have to change it because there was already a SpongeBoy, thus giving birth to SpongeBob. In the episode, The Secret Box, we can see how Patrick has a secret photo. This one belongs to the Christmas party, and supposedly it is very embarrassing for SpongeBob. Unfortunately, in the episode we can't see this photo and we could only imagine what it looks like. If you are one of those who have not seen the picture yet, here it is. This picture came to light thanks to the book Chuckle and Cringe, which is an official SpongeBob book. Patrick is known for doing nothing. He even got an award for that. But in one episode we learned that he actually has a license for several things, but the one that stands out is that he has a license for fishing. This generated discussion about the subject, since as we saw in the episode, Hooky, fishing is the worst thing that can happen to a fish for obvious reasons. This is why it is curious that Patrick has this license, since it could be considered a license to kill other fish. This made many people come to the conclusion that this is Patrick's real profession. This is how he has money and has nothing to do during the day. The Mandela Effect is the name by which the phenomenon of confabulation shared by several people is popularly known. This means that we remember things in one way, but they actually happened in another. In this case, with the first SpongeBob movie. If you have seen the movie, I invite you to choose which of the two images is the real one, since many people remember this guitar with the wrong shape. If you chose the one with the peanut shape, then you are right. And if you chose the other one, then you can see for yourself by watching the movie that it really has this shape. If you are observant, you surely notice that the Neptune that appears in the series is quite different from the one that appeared in the first movie. This is because they are two completely different characters. While one needs his trident to rule and use magic, the other one doesn't need that and can do it with his own hands. Also, the one in the movie rules the outskirts of Bikini Bottom, while the one in the series does not directly rule the seas, due to the fact that he is a god, and can even turn others into gods as seen in the episode Neptune's Spatula. Level 3. This story is about the game SpongeBob Saves the Day. While a group of enthusiasts were going through the game's files, they noticed that they were able to find the sprite sheets were just off frame for each of the game's zones, appearing when triggered. When they got to the Krusty Krab's sheet, this character appeared among the other stored object of the environment. After many emails were sent to the development team, they finally came out with some official statements about the origins of this character. Yum is a modeling test that was created around the year 2010. He had become a meme around the office. They used this character as a placeholder, as it was recognizable when going back and editing work. In addition to this, they explored what this character would look like peeking around poles as Mrs. Puff and Mr. Krabs. They forgot to remove him, and thus the character's model still remains on the game. Squidward Suicide, also known as Red Mist, is a lost episode creepypasta that is supposed to air as a premiere of SpongeBob SquarePants Season 4. You've probably heard of this alleged episode, but in case you haven't, let me tell you. The episode begins with the title card of Squidward's suicide before the camera pans into Squidward playing his clarinet horribly. He is soon interrupted by SpongeBob and Patrick laughing outside his home. Squidward aggressively tells them both to quiet down as he is practicing for a concert which, sadly, goes wrong for him. However, as the crowd booed him for his horrendous performance, they all seem to have red eyes, including SpongeBob and Patrick themselves. The camera cuts to Squidward, upset and embarrassed, in his bedroom sobbing with his head on his knees. Although the crying didn't sound like Squidward, but instead, it sounded more genuine to an actual person. Squidward has the same eyes as the crowd, and after that he decides to take his life. In episode SB-129, Squidward travels in a time machine. Eventually he arrives at a zone where there is nothing, as he says he finds himself alone. In this theory, it is stated that this zone grants whatever he wants to whoever finds it. That is why every time Squidward says he is alone, gigantic words appear, then he asks to find the time machine, and it is granted. This is when he asks to return everything to normal, including SpongeBob. Squidward manages to return, but this is not his reality, but one created from his memories, thanks to this special zone. Before we talked about the deleted scenes, and how they are cut to maintain an order, but there are also concepts that are eliminated in the same way due to the short production time. This time it is the turn of the first movie of the series. The movie supposedly would have a scene where SpongeBob would be out of the water. There he would see a squirrel that is being chased by FBI agents. It is not known why the squirrel is escaping, but it leads to think that Sandy may have gone through something similar, and that is why he takes refuge underwater. Mrs. Puff has some secrets, and it is that in many episodes hints are given about what her past might be. In the episode No Free Rides, Puff says, "I'll have to move to a new town and start a new sailing school with a new name. No. Not again." Or in the episode Krusty's Love, SpongeBob notes that she doesn't like to talk about her husband. In another episode called Doofus Demolition, she exhibits a homicidal side to her personality. First, she introduces SpongeBob to a demolition derby as an attempt to kill him. All of this tells us that Puff clearly did something before moving into Bikini Bottoms, something perhaps related to her husband. Chum is the signature ingredient in all of Plankton's menu items. In real life, chum is bait used by fishermen, made out of chopped fish, and is not recommended to consume. Chum is incredibly unappealing to the fish population of Bikini Bottom, which prevents the Chum Bucket from having customers. The fact that chum is made of fish means the whole point of Plankton's business is to make the Bikini Bottom engage in cannibalism. Level 4. Many are wondering what will be the end of the series, and the truth is that, with the success of the series and the money generated by the franchise, it is very unlikely that Nickelodeon will decide to end the series. What some people don't know is that the first movie was planned to be the true ending. That explains why Krusty Krab 2 never appears again in the series, or how the total number of years that SpongeBob worked was 31. Skin theory is the name of many instances where characters in the early seasons can be seen wearing and removing suits and false body parts from their person, and how this action is seen as normal in Bikini Bottom. In the episode Imitation Krabs, SpongeBob pulls a man's head off, revealing a smaller, differently colored head underneath. He then says, "Everyone at the head enhancement clinic said nobody would notice." This implies the existence of enhancement clinics for other parts of a body, due to the rest of the fish's body being bigger and differently colored. In another episode called Doing Time, SpongeBob and Patrick harass Mrs. Puff while in prison, and at one point disguise their appearances and voices to look like the other guard fish at the prison. Mrs. Puff thinks the two fish she's speaking to are SpongeBob and Patrick, but after ripping off their faces and revealing skulls underneath, Mrs. Puff gets punished and is forced to smash rocks. While she is smashing rocks, SpongeBob and Patrick wear rock costumes that have their exact skin tones, then they get smashed. SpongeBob says, "There goes our deposit on these costumes," confirming the existence of costume stores in Bikini Bottom. At last, in the episode, I Had an Accident, Sandy and Patrick try to lure SpongeBob out of his home by faking a gorilla attack, with Patrick dressing up in a gorilla costume. Patrick asks, "Who is your friend?" revealing that it was a gorilla with a Patrick costume. This is evidence of the theory, since a gorilla got a perfect Patrick costume with which he could imitate his voice. The gorilla decides to run away with a zebra. The curious thing is that the actor who gave the voice to the gorilla is Frank Welker, the same one who gives voice to Fred from the Scooby-Doo series, whereas we all know he specializes in unmasking monsters and solving mysteries. In a tweet created from the official Nickelodeon account, it was confirmed that SpongeBob was an LGBT character. And although for many it is not surprising, since during several episodes we can see SpongeBob dressed as a woman, among other things. The truth is that the creator Stephen Hillenburg said long before that SpongeBob was an asexual character, that is to say that he does not need another organism for reproduction. When watching SpongeBob you may have wondered how Pearl could be the daughter of Mr. Krabs, since she is a whale and not a crab. The most accepted theory is that Mr. Krabs adopted Pearl when she was a baby. However, as we know, Mr. Krabs is a very stingy guy and it doesn't seem like he would spend all the money that comes with having a daughter. Another theory says that it is possible that Pearl is the daughter of an ex-partner that Mr. Krabs had. Something happened to the mother, so Mr. Krabs had to take care of Pearl. Finally, there is a slightly murkier theory, because many believe that Mr. Krabs is Pearl's sugar daddy, which seems to make the least sense, because at no time has it been seen that they have a different relationship. They always treat each other as family most of the time. This is a theory that says that both SpongeBob and Patrick like older people, because there is evidence of this. In the episode Chocolate with Nuts, you can see how when they get money, they ask out two old women. Another example occurs in the episode Midlife Crustacean, where SpongeBob and Patrick usually enter girls' houses just to steal their underwear. Besides, as we can see, it is the house of Mr. Krabs' mother, an elderly woman. Level 5. One of the most memorable episodes of SpongeBob, if not the most, is Band Geeks. Everyone remembers this episode, and it even had an appearance on the Super Bowl. What many don't know is that this episode had a bit of controversy, as many claimed that it predicted the events of 9/11. In the episode, two fish use the flags, spin them so hard that they start to fly but crash into a zeppelin. Many thought it was a prediction, as the episode aired before the tragic incident occurred. In the episode SpongeBob in Random Land, SpongeBob and Squidward are trapped in Random Land. They try to return by opening different doors. It is here that we can see how the famous creepypasta of Squidward, which we mentioned before, becomes canon in the series. This was a very disturbing moment for many who did not expect to see such a thing. However, the most shocking thing is that when this episode came out, it was argued that Randomland is a place where all realities converge, that is to say that each of the doors could be an alternate reality to the one we know. This could explain many events that have occurred in the series. This also connects with other theories. For example, there is a Squidward who lives in the Nothing Zone, where everything is based on his memories, another where Squidward decided to end his life. It also explains why the Neptune of the series is different from the one in the movie, since it is a completely different reality. With this, even the craziest theories could make sense. Sponge on the Run is the third movie, which was released on Netflix, and whose main plot was to save Gary from King Poseidon. At the beginning of 2019, the supposed storyboard of the movie was leaked, which contained the original plot that it would have, and this turns out to be very different from what we finally saw. In the storyboard we can see that the film would take place on the surface, as the first and second film had done at certain points. SpongeBob and his friends would save the Earth from the invasion of space cats, but the most interesting thing about this is that at the end SpongeBob and Gary would sacrifice themselves to save humanity. As we know, most series have a continuity, and in animated series there can also be a continuity in the episodes, and although SpongeBob may seem to have it too, the truth is that it is not so. There is no indication that there is a continuity, since the characters do not remember the events of previous episodes, and whatever happens, everything restarts at the end of the episode. Another thing that supports this theory is that the three movies have a similar story. For example, in all three, Plankton tries to steal the formula, and somehow he succeeds. If he already managed to steal it in the first movie, why would he try to continue stealing it in the second and third, since he succeeded in all of them? This is also the reason why we don't see any character age or stop appearing in the series, since everything is a time loop in which the characters are trapped. They are destined to repeat the same thing over and over again without them knowing it. The creator of SpongeBob, Stephen Hillenburg, whom we have already mentioned, passed away on November 26, 2018. His ashes were scattered in the sea. By this gesture many fans began to say that he was now in Bikini Bottom next to his creation SpongeBob. Unfortunately, as is common on the internet, many began to create theories about what happened to him, saying things like Nickelodeon was secretly responsible for his death and other things. The truth is that Steven created a series that marked the lives of millions of people around the world. SpongeBob has the ability to unite us all, regardless of language or nationality. We all enjoy the adventures of this sponge. There's only been a handful of number ones in the entire history of forever, and Stephen Hillenburg was for sure one of them.